Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror franchise movie review video as part of my Final Destination franchise series for the month of January here. And we are into January, and Happy New Year to everybody. I hope everybody's having a good first week of the year of 2023 here. So first thing I want to do before I get into this series is I wanted to show you one of the Christmas gifts I got this year, and that is, I know you guys probably won't be able to see it too well, but they're basically Friday the 13th pajama pants. So we got Jason's machete, we've got Jason's mask, and then we got Friday the 13th all sort of intermingled throughout the pants here. So I love these. Not only do they look great, but they're comfortable as hell too. So yeah, very thankful to get those for Christmas. Was not expecting it, but definitely appreciative. So with that being said, like I said, I hope everybody's doing well so far in 2023, about 5 or 6 days in here. Let's go ahead and get into Final Destination. So, this is a franchise and a series that I promised like 3 times before this month. And part of the reason I didn't do it in November was because, as it turns out, I had to fly. Well, if you're familiar with the first Final Destination movie, you know that flying plays a pretty major role in that movie. And I kind of thought it bad karma to go ahead and start. It's the first movie, so of course it would have been the first one right before I got on a plane myself. So I'm not overly superstitious, but that just kind of felt like tempting fate a little bit. So that being said, I that's the reason I put it off until January. I thought it'd be a good way to kick off the new year as well. So first, I have the Final Destination 5 film collection here, and a pretty unremarkable, in my opinion, set. There's really nothing all that remarkable about it. You basically have 3 DVDs here stacked on top of each other with the first 2 films, then the films 3 and 4 underneath, and then the fifth film gets its own DVD. But I don't know. I thought they could have had a better collection than this. I mean, 5 films. You almost should be able to have separate DVDs, but I'm sure they were trying to save money on their end. It's fine. I mean, the DVDs are in good shape and everything. It's just it'd be nice if I don't know about Scream Factory, if somebody would come out with a better collection. Maybe there's one out there. You can let me know down in the comments down below if there is. I don't think there is as far as the 5 film collection though. This was the only thing I found. I almost felt like I might be better off just buying them individually, but I knew I was going to be doing this series, so I wanted to have them all pretty quickly. So anyway, that's on the collection. But today we're going to take a look at the first Final Destination movie from 2000 from this collection. So as I said, that's on part of the first disc. You got the first movie here. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it. And I'll say first of all, Final Destination from 2000 is a movie that I saw a couple of times. However, that's with the caveat that the last time I watched it all the way through was probably 15 years ago. And that's being generous. It might have been closer to 20 years ago because I remember watching it a couple years after it came out. I didn't see it at the theater, probably like 2002 and then maybe 04, 05. So that's more than 15 years. But anyway, I have seen it a couple times, and so I was kind of familiar with it, but it obviously had been a long time. So let's get into it. Final Destination is a 2000 American supernatural horror film directed by James Wan, with a screenplay written by Wan, Glenn Morgan, and Jeffrey Reddick, based on a story by Reddick. It is the first installment in the Final Destination film series. Um, so basically, it's about a teenager who cheats death after having a premonition of a catastrophic plane explosion. He and several of his classmates leave the plane before the explosion occurs, but death later takes the lives of those who were meant to die on the plane. So that's basically the premise for really the whole Final Destination franchise, but particularly for this movie, as it has to do with the plane explosion. So basically, the movie opens with high school student Alex Browning boarding Voley Airlines Flight 180, a Boeing 747, with his classmates for their senior trip to Paris from John F. Kennedy Airport. Before takeoff, Alex has a premonition that the plane will face a mechanical failure, leading to a mid-air explosion, killing everybody on board. When the events from his vision begin to occur in reality, he panics until a fight breaks out between him and his rival Carter Horton, resulting in both of them being removed from the plane. Along with Alex's best friend, Todd Wagner, Carter's girlfriend, Terry Cheney, teacher Valerie Luton, and students Billy Hitchcock and Claire Rivers. None of the other passengers except Claire believe Alex about his vision until the plane explodes on takeoff. Afterwards, the survivors are interrogated by two FBI agents, Ween and Shrek, who are both suspicious of Alex. 39 days later, after attending a memorial service for the victims, an unusual chain reaction causes Todd to accidentally hang himself in his shower that night. While his death is ruled a suicide, Alex sneaks into the funeral home along with Claire to examine Todd's corpse when the mortician, William Bludworth, reveals that the survivors who escaped from the impending circumstance have disrupted Death's plan, who is now claiming the lives of those who were meant to die from the accident. Alex and Claire are discussing their next move when the rest of the survivors arrive outside the cafe where Terry is run over and killed by a speeding bus on the road. So that's the setup and the premise for Final Destination, the OG from 2000. As far as the cast goes, we have Devon Sawa as Alex Browning, Ali Larter as Claire Rivers, Kerr Smith as Carton Horton, Kristen Cloak as Valerie Luton, Daniel Roebuck as Agent Ween, Roger Gunoover Smith as Agent Shrek, Chad E. Danella as Todd Wagner, Sean William Scott Stifler as Billy Hitchcock, Tony Todd as William Bludworth, and Amanda Detmer as Terry Cheney. So yeah, that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for the first original Final Destination movie from 2000. Um, I have to say, I really enjoy this movie. I remember liking it when I saw it in the early to mid 2000s. But I wasn't really into horror movies, obviously, then like I am now. And there's a lot I really like about this movie and this franchise in general. Um, but yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with the pros or the things that I do like about the movie. And the first thing you got to talk about is I just love the premise of this movie. The idea that death is this sort of villain or this evil horror in the movie, if you will, that's coming after those that avoided it somehow initially. And you can't see it. It isn't a person. It's not a slasher movie. It's not something you can hide from. Nobody can hide from death. It's something that's going to visit all of our doorsteps at some point. It's hard to stop it, as they show in this movie. It's just a very unique and interesting idea and concept. And that's definitely to me the best thing about this franchise and certainly about this first movie that I'm reviewing here is just the whole idea of death. And it's not a grim reaper, like I said, it's just this supernatural entity that's just out there that comes for you. And when you think that you've gotten away with it, it uses objects around you. It uses things. It uses the weather, the wind, the windows. I just really love all of that stuff, and it definitely makes for an effective horror movie. So that's definitely number one thing that comes to mind. Then you got to talk about the buildup and this has to do a lot with James Wan's directing and writing, as we know from other movies that he's done, as well as the other writers, Glenn Morgan and Jeffrey Reddick. They do a phenomenal job with building not only tension but a sense of dread among the viewer to know that some shit's going down and it's not going to be good for our characters here. Yeah, the buildup of tension and dread, especially in the first act of the movie, having to do with the whole plane crash and leading up to it and everything. That's the best part. And that, not to say that the second two parts of the movie, the second act and the third act, don't do a pretty good job of it too. But I feel like the first act they really nail it. Definitely the best part of the movie, in my opinion, is the first act. It's really well executed again by Juan. Does a wonderful job putting the viewer on alert that something is going to happen here, and they throw in all these little sort of ticks and these little I don't want to say Easter eggs, but just things that our characters, namely our main character, really kind of experiences. They're getting ready to board the plane and stuff, and from issues about something as simple as a tray table tab breaking on the plane, and changing seats with a couple of girls that him and his friend kind of have the hots for. And it's just very clever, very well written. Again, this movie's wonderfully written. So that was definitely the second thing that I noticed, was just the buildup of tension that they do so well. And piggybacking on that point, you got to talk about the score of this movie, which is very effective. It's a typical early 2000s score, very suspenseful, very sort of dreadful kind of score, but very enjoyable and definitely works well for this movie. Um, and really engaging based on what I was talking about, that buildup of tension as a horror movie. I think the kills are really fun in this movie. They're really fun and unique, especially how they initially subvert our expectations. Like when they give you sort of a setup and you say, "Oh, okay, she's going to end up burning herself, or the fire is going to explode on her face or something." I'm talking about one character in the middle of the movie specifically. I'll mention it in a minute because it was my favorite kill out of all of them. But they subvert our expectations. That in itself makes these kills stand out on their own pretty well from other horror movies. And then you also get a fairly decent amount of blood and gore as well with the kills. I'm not going to say that it's overly gory. Nobody's going to confuse the kills for Terrifier or anything, or Terrifier 2, but there's some blood and some gore involved here, a pretty fair amount, I would say, having to do with the kills. So, yeah, definitely effective kills. Less so for the blood and the gore, and more for subverting our expectations, and just the uniqueness and the creativeness of how they end up killing certain characters. Like I said earlier, using objects from their very house or their very room or something, or bathroom in the case of one certain character. But yeah, my favorite of the kills would have to be the teacher, Valerie Luton, who um, she's kind of farting around with something on the stovetop. I think she's making tea, and it kind of goes from there. So you kind of think you know what's going to happen. She's going to get scalded or burned really bad, or fire's going to be involved, and you have to watch it. I'm not going to give it away, but that's one thing I really enjoy as well, are the kills. Those are really my top three things that I really enjoy. Well, I guess four, talking about the score and the music as well. Just that's more of a nostalgia thing from around 2000s. It kind of has late 90s vibes, which makes sense because this movie came out in 2000, but it's still kind of holding on to those late 90s vibes. It was probably shot in 99, I'm guessing. Um, I think most of the characters are pretty well established and pretty well written as well, especially Alex and Clear, sort of our two main characters, who we come to understand them, some of their backstory, where they came from, who they are, to the point where we do root for them to survive in this movie, where maybe we don't with all the other characters. Um, but yeah, I thought the characters overall, especially for this time period, and this type of movie, were really well written and pretty well acted as well. Especially Devon Sawa, I think he was definitely the best performer in this movie. I really liked the ending of the movie as well. I know they rewrote it because they had one that was kind of crappy, from what I've heard, but it really leaves the ending that's actually in the movie really leaves the viewers unsure of where things ended up and where they went. But also it leaves them on the edge of their seat, which is exactly what you want in a horror movie. You want that effective, gotcha kind of ending, that when the viewer thinks that a horror movie's over, of course, nowadays we all know that they're going to throw that last little bit of at you. But I thought they did a really good job in this movie, and just kind of bringing it out full circle, if you will, the whole concept of everything in this movie. So yeah, those are really my pros for the original Final Destination. I could probably find other ones. Well directed, well written, it looks good. All those technical things are good. The performances, as I said, aren't awful, but Devon Sawa definitely steals the show. There, as far as cons go, there are some cliched characters, like you have the badass tough guy who definitely over. I don't want to say he overacts, because he was probably taught to, or probably told to act that way, but he's like way too aggressive right off the bat. That would be Kerr Smith's character of Carter Horton. You've got Sean William Scott as Billy Hitchcock, who's sort of the comic relief. And there's a few funny, lighter moments in this movie. I mean, it's definitely not a horror comedy or anything, but it's just, I think he does a decent job. Nobody's awful, but I wouldn't say anybody's Oscar worthy either, other than Devon Sawa. I think he's a step above. That's just my opinion. Um, Also, certain characters definitely come to conclusions a little too quickly for the audience, in my opinion, to be believed, and even the other characters as well, that they're being that the main character is telling this to. The whole death's design thing, there's some story conveniences and contrivances there for sure, which you just kind of have to go with. Um, yeah, there's really nothing else you can say about it. You just kind of have to go with it. And but there are certain conclusions that the main character reaches that are just a little too fast for me, and a little too just being believed by everybody or most people, I should say. Also, Tony Todd's character of Bloodworth, I think is how you pronounce it, Blud. It can't be Bloodworth because that'd be Blood. But Bloodworth seemed kind of wasted in my opinion, and kind of a brief appearance, maybe 5 minutes on screen. For somebody who's a big fan of Tony Todd with that voice that he has, and just as he can play creepy with the best of them, especially with that deep menacing voice of his. But I don't know. I kind of felt like he was a wasted opportunity here, and I thought they kind of used him more as an exposition dump because basically his character explains what's happening and how these characters are better watch out because the fact that they escaped this plane crash, death's coming for him, kind of thing. It just felt like an exposition dump by an actor that's got way more than that to offer, in my opinion. So that was a con that I have. Um, the plot contrivances again of characters all being at the same place at the same time, numerous on numerous different occasions, seems far fetched. And again, it's another writing convenience, another plot convenience. The most notable one being outside a coffee shop where one character walks out, two of them are outside having coffee. A couple more, one's riding his bike right by there, while another's driving his car with his girlfriend right by there, and they all happen to come there at the same time. Eh, again, you just have to kind of go with it. I mean, it is what it is. Um, and then my final con for the movie is the whole mapping out the order of deaths. He goes through our main character of Alex goes through this where he's got the plane written out and he's trying to do this line of who would have died first. And my question is, other people have brought this up. When a plane explodes, I don't think the explosion doesn't tend to go zoom, zoom, zoom like that. And I don't know, I thought they hit on it a little too much, more than they needed to, in my opinion. It just got a little too contrived, and so the whole mapping out of who's next and how do we skip them, and that made it kind of fun in the third act, who got skipped and who was next, because you had to think, and you obviously makes you more engaged yourself. But yeah, I could have done without that part, especially the when he keeps looking back at the plane and trying to get the design or the order. That was just unnecessary, in my opinion. But other than that, guys, this is a really, really good, one of the best 2000s movie. And again, it's kind of a late 90s, right at 2000 horror movie. I love the first Final Destination movie. I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10. Some of it might be nostalgia, but I really do think it's James Wan, man, just so well written and well executed. And I love the premise. Like I said, I love the idea that they came up with here, along with the execution and the buildup of tension. So it's definitely a very worthy horror movie. So 9 out of 10 for the original, the OG Final Destination from 2000. Go ahead and comment down below what you guys think of the original Final Destination. What would your rating be for it? Please like this video if you do, and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this series. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel as well so you don't miss any of my great horror content. Of course, the rest of this series throughout January, including a ranking video of all 5 movies at the end of the month. But also what I have coming out beyond that. If you saw my intro video to the new year, you know that I have like the first 4 or 5 months planned out with some great horror content. I'll also be giving you guys some other possible fun horror related tidbits. So thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoy this series. Hope everybody's having a happy new year. Stay scared. Bye.